What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast here on the Smark Out Moment channel, where we travel back in time to the year 2003, check out every single episode of SmackDown under Paul Heyman's stewardship, which are getting shorter and shorter by the episode, really, because we are very, very close to the end. We are now into February, the final month of our journey in terms of our actual just standard shows. Obviously, we'll do a little bit past that when we get into the WrestleMania stuff, but we'll talk about that closer to the time. But for now, joining me, Callum Wiggins, as per usual, on this journey back in time, Robert DeFelice.
What's in the box, Callum?
I'd assume it's not the Undertaker's wife's severed head.
It's definitely not.
No. Ex-wife, we should say, obviously, as well. Not because she's got a severed head or anything.
No.
Other reasons for that. But, yep, a big box plays a big role in this edition of SmackDown, which we will be reviewing. But before we get into all of the details, we would encourage you, of course, to, if you're watching us on YouTube, leave a like, drop a comment below, let us know what you're thinking about this episode or the series in general. And, yeah, if you want to do any other stuff, like become a member of the channel or hit the applause button and throw a few bucks our way, that is very much appreciated as well. If you're listening through one of the podcast feeds like Stitcher or iTunes or something along those lines, then drop us a rating or a review, whatever that particular podcast feed allows you to do to support us. Over on the YouTube side, again, there's a playlist for every single episode of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast. You can go all the way back to episode 0, all the way through to episode 33, watch them all in continuity. Actually, really perpetuity. Just watch them constantly. Just have it always on in one browser and just play all the way through.
Yeah, I think we deserve those watch hours.
Exactly. And there's a link in the description to this edition of in the WWE Network, which I guess you'll be able to use up until the point the WWE Network ceases to be in North America. But that's...
I imagine, well, I hope it's still as easy to navigate as the WWE Network is today.
Yeah. Just in case anyone's thinking, no, I'm not going back through every single description and updating them to the Peacock link. So
no,
once it's done, it's done. Yeah, so get it in now while you still can. But unless you're listening to this in like 3 months' time, in which case, tough luck. So, but here we are, episode 33. And as per usual, let's start off with a little bit of like major news around the time, starting with Steve Austin's tell-all interview in Raw magazine. Talking about his departure in 2002 and the reasons behind that and his frustrations with WWE at this point in time. According to people that obviously I was reading through the Observer's review of it, and his perception of it was a mixture of genuine frustrations and like the actual realities of the situation combined with a lot of storyline build, which I guess you'd expect from an actual WWE branded magazine.
Yeah. This was an interesting walkout. Like, they marketed the hell out of this walkout. They did confidential specials, magazine interviews, and in the time since, Steve Austin's been a man about it and just sort of been like, yeah, I regret that one. That one, he does say he wishes he didn't do it, you know? I think he's even gone so far as to say, like, he feels like he wasted some of his last few good months. And obviously, he's going to do 2 more things this year. But I always feel like, in my mind, Steve Austin's career ends at WrestleMania 17, and that's pretty sad.
I always feel like when he says that it was a mistake and everything like that, I obviously believe that he thinks there was a mistake and he didn't want to leave at that point in time. But I also feel like he's trying to save face a little bit like that because pretty much anybody that knows the story behind it, which is that Austin refused to do the job to Brock Lesnar because he thought that it should be built up to a pay-per-view match. And then you just hear that and think, well, yeah, he's right. It should have been built to a pay-per-view match.
He's 100% right, but I think for him, the mistake was going home for half a year instead of just like, yeah, let's not do that, and then finding another way to continue working.
So he noted how he was frustrated with the fact that promos were now being completely scripted by people who had little to no knowledge of wrestling. Good thing that changed in the ensuing years.
Yeah, really.
He spoke about his divorce with Deborah and partially blamed the fact that Deborah's career suffered once their relationship became public because that means that she couldn't separate herself from the Austin character.
I think that that's a fair take.
Austin noted that his heel turn was a failure, took blame for it, but also attributed some blame to Triple H for refusing to turn babyface to feud with him, which seemed to be the natural progression of things, leaving Austin with no strong babyface challenger because The Rock left for Hollywood at that point.
That's a bit of a dig at Mr. Big Evil. Like, that's a strong babyface. I think it would have been worse if Hunter turned face. Because I can tell you right now, I don't like Triple H as a baby. I like him as a babyface, but he's so much better suited as a heel that I think that would have been worse.
He said he wasn't happy about being so low down on the WrestleMania 18 card.
I'm not happy about that either. To this day, I'm not happy about that.
He said that he was happy working with both Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, but has less than positive things to say about Hulk Hogan.
I always thought, and we'll never really get into it, but I always thought the match should have been Austin, Kevin Nash. But I understand him not working with Hogan, and I think that match would have ultimately been a failure too, because Hogan matches perfectly with The Rock. He just does. Like the Austin match would not have been as good as people think.
And then towards the end of it gets more storyline heavy in the interview, and essentially targets both The Rock for The Rock's promo where he talked about Austin taking his ball and going home. Even though obviously that's scripted, he just decides to use that as an opportunity to say that he took that personal, what The Rock said, even though obviously The Rock was scripted to say it. And also throw a few shots at Triple H as well, because I assume at this point in time when he wrote the thing, he wasn't thinking that he was going to retire immediately after WrestleMania, so he might have thought, okay, one of my last things I'll do is do a program with Triple H as well.
I think there was a time where I believed that was a possibility, even for this year's WrestleMania. And honestly, I think Triple H Austin, especially that Triple H, would have been very good.
Other news, essentially, Anon Diaz, which was a division of Acclaim, and WWE reached an agreement that would result in WWE paying approximately $1.87 million for the intellectual property and video rights to the ECW library.
You're not going to have the answer to this, and I'm just going to ask it point blank. Do you think that deal is what resulted in contracted superstars like Hogan and Guerrero and all those guys being in the Acclaim Legends Wrestling series, even though they were still on live television?
I can't say for certain if that was the whole reason behind it. I don't know whether. I mean, my assumption was that game was in development during the brief window where all these people were in the free agency, or were like sitting on their WCW contracts. That was my only assumption for it.
Because I don't know. It's just so funny to me that there are games out there where Eddie Guerrero is a completely playable character while he's, WWE champion.
Yeah. So I can't say for certain if that's the case. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if that was some sort of like added bonus into it as well. But in which case, I would have thought, wouldn't they get better wrestlers for it? Not to take anything away from Eddie Guerrero because he's a great wrestler, but wouldn't you ask for The Rock or Stone Cold to be in that game instead?
I did always think that Ric Flair was missing from those games, but yeah, I always thought they were fun. And they're gems. They're not great, but they fly under the radar.
Also, the fact that they got access to this ECW library and they were trying at the time to get hands on basically everything in the AEWA library as well. It was fueling rumors that there would be a WWE 24-hour channel coming soon.
So they did do the WWE 24/7 on demand. And I always thought that was like a 24/7 channel, like the one that we have today. And honestly, people can hate on it all they want. I think the WWE Network is a legitimately great resource for so much in wrestling.
So we have other stuff here. So, a couple of it was either a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago. I can't remember. Time just passes by immediately. But we did a little bit of analysis into, well, Dave Meltzer, let's put it that way, did a little bit of analysis that we talked about around about the Raw ratings and who was drawing the most,
right?
Who was doing well in certain areas. So Meltzer, in this edition of the Observer that I checked out, did the same thing with SmackDown Superstars. So we can
Okay.
have a little bit about that. So the superstars that were having the most positive impact on ratings, who would you say was having the biggest, basically in any segment, which outside of the main event, outside the main event mainly, because main event kind of skews things a little bit here and there, but in terms of just like an overall sense, who do you think on SmackDown was the biggest mover of ratings in a positive way?
Tori Wilson.
No, she was on the positive end of it though. She's like, let me check the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She was eighth.
Okay. Rey Mysterio.
He was sixth.
Edge.
No,
No?
no, Edge was pretty neutral.
Well, I'm guessing, like, of course, again, outside the main event scene, so we're not talking, like, Brock
Well,
Lesnar.
I mean, these people. I'm not saying like I meant main event segments of the show. I mean, like the final quarter. It's kind of yeah, not main event people as it were, but like,
Okay.
but just like is kind of like the final quarter of the show. Kind of sometimes skews it one way or another. Unfortunately, like too far to make it not worthwhile.
All right, so I would say Kurt Angle.
He was fifth,
Where's Brock ranked on this?
second.
Is Undertaker first?
He's fourth.
Really? I'm trying to stall on. I'm hoping that number one's not Stephanie.
It's not Stephanie. Stephanie was neutral as well.
Okay, good. Benoit?
Benoit was a negative detriment.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about the negative ones in a little bit. But
I don't know who's number one.
number one is the Big Show.
That is bullshit, and you know it.
Big Show had not by far, but by a noticeable margin, the highest positive impact on ratings from segments that he wasn't involved in to segments that he was involved in.
You know that's just not true.
Second place, I mean, this is taking statistics from the last 5 months of SmackDown television that Meltzer was using for that. So it is over an extended period of time.
So
and obviously, Big Show
December to like August or so.
No, it would have been from. I assume it would have been somewhere from like September to January, probably at this point. So Big Show is pretty prominently because he did join SmackDown at that point, so that was a big deal. And he was WWE champion for a while as well, and he was working with Brock and he was working with Angle. So there are factors involved in this, but there is no denying that Big Show was there pretty consistently in terms of being a positive ratings mover. The other people on the positive side of things on the list, or at least like prominently on the positive side. So Big Show number 1, Brock Lesnar number 2, Paul Heyman number 3.
Yeah, well, he's in everything.
Undertaker 4th, Kurt Angle 5th, Rey Mysterio 6th, Matt Hardy 7th.
I appreciate it.
And Tori Wilson 8th.
All right.
What about the superstars having the most negative impact? So there are, so just names of people you think are doing negatively. I obviously have mentioned Chris Benoit. He's on the higher end of the negative effects. So he's like somebody that's not, he's having a detrimental effect, but not significantly.
Okay. So we're going from September to January.
Yeah.
Is Al Wilson ranked on this?
Al Wilson is joint worst.
Oh, well then, does that put him joint with Dawn Marie?
Yeah, Dawn Marie was also joint worst.
They
actually averaged out to be fairly neutral in general, but I removed the fact that the wedding segment did really, really well. So if you took like an average of like basically everything outside of the wedding, they were the lowest there.
Outside of that, Billy Kidman?
No, Kidman's fine, fairly neutral.
Okay, good. That's good. John Cena.
John Cena was a negative, but less of a negative than even Benoit was.
Is this where we throw in? Oh no, you said Steph was neutral.
Yeah, Steph was neutral. Yeah.
From September. Kishi's on TV a lot, but I can't see him being a negative.
No, he was fairly neutral as well.
Well, we haven't talked about Guerreros. Where are they?
Yeah, both Guerreros are negative influences.
Really?
Funny enough, Eddie is a bigger negative influence than Chavo was.
I'm going to assume that's because he's on TV more.
Presumably, yes. Well, he was involved in more segments, but Chavo was having the same sort of negative impact that Benoit was, while Guerrero's one was slightly bigger. The two other people that I have on the list, alongside Dawn Marie and Al Wilson, are Bill DeMott
You know, I was gonna say him, but I just thought maybe he hadn't been around that long.
Mm. Long enough to at least average out to be a negative. And Crash Holly.
Oh, that's just not fair.
Well,
Poor Crash.
I think his problem was the fact that he was always involved in segments that just didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I find it interesting that Benoit is a negative. Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe
again,
it was skewed more
boom.
positive towards the Royal Rumble sort of time, but he's a bit of a neutral figure overall. Like again, it's one of those people that people that are really into wrestling and really like know want to just watch the greatest matches in general, just know how good Benoit is and know how good Guerrero is, but there's something about them that doesn't connect with the audience at large.
Yeah, I think that that's fair, but I also like he was in so many segments with Kurt. So if Kurt's positive, how is Benoit not like right there?
Yeah, I don't kind of get it as well. Obviously, I can only go based by the statistics that are presented, and Meltzer's always struck me as a guy that's very meticulous with this sort of thing as well. So I can't really claim that it's false information. But I guess the segments that Benoit was involved when the Angle wasn't would just had a serious negative impact on ratings. That's the only thing I can guess from that.
I'm trying to think of like what he did. Well, if we look at
I mean,
so Big
he
Show
had
is
matches a lot
top
with the
positive.
Guerreros, so
Yeah. So Big Show's a top positive around the time that Benoit starts working more with Eddie.
mm,
So maybe you look at Benoit and Eddie and no tag titles and you just go, eh, like it's not important.
yeah.
I
Maybe
guess
they
I
were
can
just
understand
positioned.
that.
Maybe they were just put in bad positions and stuff like that. There's obviously a lot of factors. It may not just be due to the fact that Benoit and Guerrero and the Guerreros just aren't popular or anything along those lines. There's a lot of factors that get involved in that. I just thought it was interesting to look at who was seen to be like moving the numbers for SmackDown at this point in time. Other stuff's going on. There was the infamous shoot promo segment in TNA involving Tony Schiavone.
You know, they had a few of those and they're really weird. Like I remember Piper all but saying you killed Owen Hart to Vince Russo. Like some weird shit, man.
Yeah, this is the source of the excellent Tony Schiavone line. I went there once and then quit the business for 17 or 18 years. I can't remember exactly what the number was.
It's a true statement, sadly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was the thing that happened. Essentially, he went on to TV in a orange Hawaiian shirt and badmouthed Paul Bearer, who was in the ring at the time,
I remember that.
and Goldilocks, and then had a verbal exchange with Mike Tenay,
Yeah.
which was supposed to lead to Shivani becoming the full-time heel commentator alongside Tenay to
Which would have
replace
been
Don West.
stupid. Which would have been stupid.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. But Shivani basically went to that taping, and then upon leaving, basically said, "I'm never going back to work there again."
and how they didn't scoop this guy for either Raw. I changed that for especially Raw when Eric Bischoff was running Raw. I'll never understand because as we've all seen now, Tony Schiavone is great.
Mm. Yeah, I guess Vince never saw anything in him,
That's
but
crazy.
Vince is Vince. Sting spoke on a World Wrestling All Stars tour about how he had been close to agreeing a deal with WWE to appear at WrestleMania in some capacity.
Oh.
Apparently it wasn't to wrestle, but to just be at the show. I think that if he would have been involved in that show in some capacity, it would have been in the McMahon Hogan match.
He has said in years past that Austin, and I never understood this because I didn't see this match happening. Austin was supposed to win, and then Sting's supposed to show up and point the bat at Austin. And I'm just like, that's not the match I would have wanted. But
No,
hey, like that would have been a good match.
we are
Honestly,
never getting that Sting Undertaker match.
honestly, uh, Triple H, he should have pointed the bat at Triple H. And I know we could talk about what happened, was it 12 years after the fact?
Mm.
But Sting then was the perfect guy for Triple H to fight.
The final bit of news that I have involves something that took place, well, something that was supposed to take place at a Madison Square Garden house show, which was supposed to be the first ever one-on-one meeting of Triple H and Brock Lesnar.
They did cancel that. I remember that.
Yeah, due to Triple H injuring his leg, because Triple H is perennially injured, yet still the world champion this entire run.
And it's always the legs too. Like him and Nash have, they're just shot.
Yeah. So basically, it left the audience furious because they replaced it on the fly with a Lesnar versus Team Angle gauntlet match.
That's lame. I'm sorry. Like it's
Yeah.
good, but when you're talking about an interpromotional match, you couldn't send like I don't know, Kane or somebody.
Yeah. I think either way they would have been disappointed about it, but the idea with the Lesnar Team Angle thing is that Lesnar would fight Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin in fairly long matches, and then he would get a WWE Championship match against Kurt Angle to close the show, but that match only went 2 minutes, and then Team Angle interfered and caused a DQ. So that was how.
That's pretty shitty, I gotta say.
Yeah. So many demanded refunds after the show. There were chants of refund after the show, so nice to see some things don't change.
That's pretty sad. I like when you're Brock Lesnar and you've done some cool stuff and you've actually been WWE champion in Madison Square Garden. I think it sucks that people are chanting for refunds on your second go around.
So that's the end of the news segment. So let's talk a little bit about Monday Night Raw. So after last week being able to get a rare victory over SmackDown in the ratings, they were back down on this week's one, down from a 4.1 the previous week to a 3.4. So almost a full point dropped. I guess we'll talk about the reasons why that might have been when we do our little bit of a recap on that. SmackDown back on top with a 3.8, so they actually dropped from the previous week as well, but was enough to defeat Raw.
Well, I still think SmackDown's a much better show, especially having gone back now and just recap these Raws. It's much better.
So what was Raw up to? So Evolution was officially named as a group. So
In a
that's
great promo.
Yeah. The four men beat up Tommy Dreamer. They cut a promo and spent the night watching the rest of the show from box seats in the stadium. Scott Steiner beat Chris Jericho in a number one contenders match in the main event to earn another opportunity at Triple H's World Heavyweight Championship at No Way Out. Yep, we will talk about that. And as far as I know, it's not as bad as the Royal Rumble one, but it can only be so much better, I guess, at this point.
Right. Well, I think it was better. I think it's better, especially because you have the added element of evolution. And now at least you feel like you're going somewhere, you know?
There was an on-running story on Raw of Eric Bischoff driving around Texas trying to find Steve Austin.
In what are great vignettes, Callum. What are fun vignettes. Eric Bischoff, and I know you feel a certain way about him as like a businessman, but as a character, I think Eric Bischoff is a level just underneath the McMahons. They're good heels, like just good.
Oh no, I'll never deny the fact that Bischoff was an excellent character. Just he only ever had one good idea and could never get past it.
I'll give you that.
And the show ended with Vince calling Eric to say if it isn't done by next week, then Bischoff will be fired. So that was the ultimatum to end the show. A little cliffhanger there. Kane versus RVD ended in a no contest when Jeff Hardy interfered.
Poor Jeff.
He slapped Kane. He then ate a choke slam and a frog splash. Shawn Michaels then came out to try and cancel Jeff Hardy and try and see the error in his ways. Jeff Hardy responded by trying to attack Shawn Michaels, and he then got hit with Sweet Chin Music. So
I think that this would have been more important, and Jeff being Jeff made it not so.
I honestly think that Jeff's just getting punished because he was suspended a little while earlier. Like we talked about the fact that he was suspended from all the house shows because he kept repeatedly turning up late. So I think he's just getting beaten up for the sake of being beaten up. I don't think they actually have a plan for him turning heel.
I wouldn't say it unless it was Shawn. Because it's Shawn, I feel like they could have. And Shawn is very much, I just came back, I just found Jesus. let me help this lost, misguided soul. I
Mm.
think it would have been pretty good.
So Test called out Chris Jericho and beat up Christian for a bit. So they're building towards a Test and Jericho match.
I like it.
William Regal and Lance Storm defended their tag team championships against Booker T and Goldust. With Goldust then saying to Booker that they should go their separate ways so Booker can focus on his singles career.
Well, I never. Well, obviously we know where this is going, but they've played far too much with Dustin Rhodes being the weak link when we know that this guy is still going and he's good.
Yeah. Later in the night, Goldust was attacked by Batista and Randy Orton, who sent him into an electrical box and electrocuted him, which led to the very famous Goldust stammering gimmick.
So, oh god, it's so insensitive. First of all, but the promo that he does with Triple H is one of the funniest things, if only for Ric Flair and Triple H's red beat faces for the entire time.
Other stuff that went on. Victoria beat Molly Holly in a weird like heel versus heel match.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
And then Jazz came in, beat up Molly Holly, and stared down Victoria. So basically, they're telling the story that Jazz is beating up everybody until she gets to Victoria.
Maybe we're setting up heel versus heel versus heel. Obviously, I know Trish is going to get added to that three-way at Mania.
And D'Lo Brown beat Maven to continue his own winning streak.
The Black Superhero, was he called last week?
Yeah, pretty much, when he beat the Hurricane, yeah.
Fantastic.
So it's odd to just see, like, 2003, D'Lo Brown's getting a push.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because in this era, we're so used to, oh, well, their time in the sun is over, so they're old and beaten down. But, like, if you look at wrestling today and who's getting a push today,
Yep.
it almost seems weird that D'Lo Brown didn't get more of a push in 2003.
So that was Raw. That's what Raw was up to. So let's move on to the main event. So SmackDown, February the 6th, 2003, First Union Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I feel like they've been in Pennsylvania quite a lot.
Here.
Yeah, I feel like they've been in Pennsylvania a lot.
Yeah, they're so very much in that era of like, we're not as national, let alone global, as I thought they would be. So they're very much like, well, we're in Pennsylvania, we're in New Jersey, we're in Pennsylvania, and back to Jersey.
So right after the opening theme, we see a crane in the crowd holding up a giant wooden box with a red ribbon wrapped around it.
We're starting early, folks.
Yeah. It has a tag saying it's to the Undertaker from Big Show, and it's lifted out of the ring by the crane. Hulk Hogan will be here tonight, they announce, while The Rock will be here via satellite. The tag titles are on the line, and Angle meets Benoit. Basically, this is a stacked show, and they've had this box out here, which is a lot of intrigue. It is far more exciting and intriguing than basically any episode of Raw in the past 48 months or something.
Forgive me if I'm wrong here, but shouldn't we have started with the box?
I mean,
why
we should
is the box in the ring?
I don't know why the box is in the ring, but it's just, I like the fact that they show you this and it's pulled away, and then you're just like, oh, I wonder what that's all about. I like the tease of it because it makes you want to stick around to watch and find out.
I'll grant you that.
So at least it has that going for it. I don't know why they had to put it in the ring first of all. They couldn't just have it in the crane, but I guess they felt it'd be more impactful. Like, oh, we've got this crane, we might as well use it to lift it from one side to the other. Because then we wouldn't get the shots of like Rey Mysterio and Jamie Noble coming out and during their entrances just staring at the crate.
I do like the way WWE builds intrigue like that.
So our first match is a cruiserweight match between Rey Mysterio and Jamie Noble. And listen, I don't think they even get 5 minutes in this match. But the one thing you have to say about the cruiserweight, especially these two, is they make every single second count.
You know what this match reminded me of? In 2007, during a Beat the Clock challenge, London wrestles Kendrick for 5 minutes. And I still maintain it's one of the best 5 minutes I've ever seen in wrestling. Maybe, they were so good at maximizing their time and not feeling rushed.
So you have like a chain / lucha wrestling start. Noble then just steamrolls Mysterio, knocks him down. A gutbuster, dropping him down from his shoulders. Mysterio escapes in a Donald stretch with a wheelbarrow bulldog, springboard crossbody, and then there's this awesomely sold tornado DDT where Noble basically leaps off the mat from the head cell. That's always great. Noble knocks into the referee after Mysterio shoulders him from the apron. Nunzio uses this to trip Mysterio up. Noble gets a running drop kick to the outside, so still managing to get heat in this segment, despite the fact that they're literally only going for like 3 or 4 minutes. There's Nunzio helps Noble escape a 619. Noble bounces Mysterio off the ropes into a sweet sit-out powerbomb for 2. Who uses that? That's Scott Dawson. Not Scott Dawson. Dax.
Dash Wilder, yeah. Yeah. So that's a very good move. I love a good sit-up powerbomb. Jamie, it doesn't surprise me that Jamie Noble just put together the Royal Rumble match, and he's still working in wrestling because he's so good. And he's a class example of you don't need to be Shawn Michaels to be very, very, very good at this gig.
So Mysterio rolls for another powerbomb into an immediate senton. Nunzio tries to get involved again, but Mysterio drop kicks Noble into her, so they're both in the middle rope. He hits a double 619, which Taz refers to as 1238.
That's first of all, that's lame. Second of all, that's always a good spot.
Cole calls Taz the Rain Man for coming up with that number.
That's even worse.
Mysterio hits a West Coast pop and gets the victory. So again, very good for the time they're allocated. Mysterio gets a win as he should because he's the biggest star out of the 2 of them, even though Noble was great.
Why is there this trend of Michael Cole acting like everybody else is a dork?
I don't know. Maybe I think he got frosted tips and then he just thought that he was cool by
He's
just
cool. I guess so.
Yeah, it's not good, especially nowadays when he is one of the biggest geeks on the entire show on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
This is even before he got jacked as well, so he doesn't even have that to stand on.
It's funny.
We get to The Rock appearing from Hollywood. He gets a mainly negative reception. Very negative.
Do you think they piped that in?
No, I think he actually got a negative reception. He was getting booed a lot at this point.
Well, it is Philly, so
yeah. Rock says he's cooking up a Philadelphia cheesesteak in the kitchen, or at least he didn't mention her by name, but he just said that he's got some hot woman in the kitchen making stuff for him. But then says he's only kidding because he's lactose intolerant, and then he makes a load of fart noises. He asked he asked the lady in the kitchen to make him some Tampa Bay tofu, and the crowd booed that as well.
I like that The Rock knew that he's like, all right, they're gonna hate me, so I'm just gonna play into it and be the most egregious Hollywood piece of shit.
Yeah, I think he knows that he's turning heel at this point in time, but he's doing it in a very subtle way. Like he's still not going full-fledged heel. He's being more like the babyface, the heel that thinks he's a babyface still, which I kind of appreciate. He talks about how he was in front of the Rocky Balboa statue last time he was in Philly, and the people were chanting his name, and then a really small section of the crowd started chanting his name, and the rest of them are just booing him. Rock says he'll always proudly be the people's champion, but he noticed that some people were booing, and Rock says that's fine. You can boo, you can cheer, you can do whatever you want because Rock's only out there to electrify the people. But he asks why they're booing and figures it out because they're in Philly and how Philly boos all the great sporting superstars that's ever been passed through the city before. But they've never ever booed Hulk Hogan, which I think would be false from like 2016 onwards. But it's
I have to imagine it might have been false then too.
Yeah. Rock says everyone loves Hogan, including him, and he's like excited about their match. But notes how Hogan disappeared, and the last time Rock saw him was in some ballet commercial with Terry Bradshaw and a Muppet.
Have you ever seen that commercial?
I actually watched the commercial off the back of that just to find out what it was. It's for a phone company called 10-10-220.
10-10-220.
Yeah, and he's just doing ballet with this guy.
So
I don't know who Terry Bradshaw is. Should I know him?
Football? No, you wouldn't know.
Oh, okay, fair.
This is a great commercial that is burned into my brain from childhood, and not only that, it's referenced in the legendary Macho Man Randy Savage rap song "Be a Man, Hogan." Oh God, I do enjoy some of this cheese.
So Rock says Hulkamania will not die at No Way Out, but Rock will kick his ass and beat him. So that's basically what the promo is.
I respect it.
Yeah, it's clean, crisp, to the point. It didn't overstay its welcome, even though Rock does have a tendency to just overstay his welcomes occasionally. But this was pretty short by his standards. Rikishi versus Nunzio. What a hell of a mismatch this is.
Ah, well, here's the good news. Nunzio is proving to be a regular highlight every time I see him, and Rikishi, I have maintained throughout this journey, should be a main event player.
So Nunzio attacks Rikishi during his entrance, and he starts delivering tackles to Rikishi's leg. Eventually gets him in a pin position. Rikishi does the traditional big man kick out where you throw a guy off of you.
Yep.
Rikishi,
And Nunzio is tiny too, so
yeah,
he
he's
can
pretty tall.
fly.
Yeah. Rikishi chokeslams Nunzio, kicks him in the corner. He has Nunzio in position for the stink face, but instead he hits a charging hip attack like Umaga hit.
I like that move.
Oh, it's a great move. I just feel like, why is Rikishi not doing the stink face anymore?
Because he's trying to be serious.
Yeah, no, I don't like it because I like it if you're actually pushing the guy, but they don't seem to actually be pushing him. And so the best thing about Rikishi was the fact that he was loads of fun and he did the stink face, and the crowd was really excited by it. Because I feel like they're trying to teach him more serious, and I thought they may have been turning heel. Obviously, he wins this match with the rump shaker immediately afterwards, but then he starts dancing for the people, and there's the pyro and all this other stuff. So they're clearly not turning him.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to show a little more aggression. Maybe somebody said, "Hey, no more ass and face." You know, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, what we do know out of this segment, though, is that Nunzio is very upset about this result, and he's going to be bringing in some of his people to help deal with Rikishi at a later date.
Yep, and they do have uh and the full-blooded Italians. First thing they do is fight Rikishi. I don't think we get through all that stuff.
I believe we do.
We do?
We don't get through all of it, I don't think, because the full-blooded Italians are around until definitely past Judgment Day.
Yeah.
But we'll get to see the start of it at the very least.
Okay, that's good. I like them.
So after the Rikishi dance segment, we get to Paul Heyman coming out asking for people's attention, and he asks the monkeys manning the crane to lift the crate into the ring, saying it's a gift for the Undertaker. Heyman, after break, is in the ring. He talks about last week, states that the Big Show is again not here tonight. The legitimate reason for this is that Big Show's back was really badly hurting still, so he was taking time off. He was taking time off to recover. Heyman says that this gift will convince Taker and invites him to come down to the ring. Taker arrives on his bike in a big evil half shirt, and so he's in the ring. He examines the crate for a little while, just like eyeing it up. Then he kicks it, and then he just opens it afterwards. Like he opens it eventually, like really, really hesitantly, like he's grabbing at the side of it and just waiting for someone to jump out. And you just see a look on the Undertaker's face of like, what the fuck is this? And then the camera pans over, and it's Brother Love.
So I have always been of the opinion that they didn't play on this nearly enough at times. Like Brother Love brought the Undertaker in, and then that was of the era where you would just drop shit when shit didn't work.
Yeah.
You know? Like
Yeah. So he was only the manager of the Undertaker for a couple of months before they switched over to he was handing over to Paul Bearer, which was obviously a much, much better fit. And yeah, but there is that relationship there, and Brother Love jumps up on the Undertaker, gives him a big hug. Do you think Bruce Pritchard's ever done that to Mark Calloway behind the scenes?
absolutely. I think he's done it more than once.
Luss says that he's here to give a message of love and forgiveness for Take to forgive the Big Show. He says that he was the one to bring Undertaker to WWE, and asks Undertaker if he still remembers the lessons of love and forgiveness that he taught him. when he first joined. Taker just yelling at the Undertaker, telling him that he needs to forgive the Big Show and remember all the things I taught you. And Taker eventually shuts him up, stops him yelling. He grabs Love around the throat, delivers a chokeslam, and then even delivers a tombstone pile driver, because I presume that's safer to take than the Last Riders.
I think so.
So Bruce getting physical
what do you
here.
think about Brother Love as a character?
I honestly, I don't know enough about the origin behind it, because obviously I wasn't watching at that point in time. If I knew what the origin or the purpose of it was originally, then I might be more involved in it. From my perspective of like very limited exposure, like only these sort of segments and a few funny other ones. So yeah, it's like a one note joke. Very, very one note to me. Like, it's funny the first, maybe second time you see it, and then after that, it's just like, okay, I've seen you do everything your character does. Just go away.
Are television preachers as big overseas as they are over here?
No, of course they're not.
Well, that would be why maybe this gimmick doesn't click with you, because we have a lot of that in America, and I think it's funny just because they are legitimately like that.
Oh no, I don't. I don't doubt that for a second. It's just, yeah, it's not really connecting to me. Again, if I knew the backstory a little bit more, then maybe I would be. But I'm definitely not going to be searching that out, though. I don't really feel the need to. If I ever find out,
Fair
then
enough.
I find out. But we see Hogan walking backstage. He shakes hands with two guys I do not recognize, and I can't find any information about online. I assume they were just like trainee guys or something like that, but I have no idea who they were.
Maybe they're like OVW class that we just never saw.
Yeah, I imagine so, something like that. He then walks into Brock Lesnar, and obviously
Yeah.
last time they saw each other,
Brock
Lesnar was
killed him.
smearing blood away. Yes, smearing his blood away over his chest. They stare down. Lesnar then smiles and says, "Welcome back," and then lets Hogan walk by.
Nice guy, Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I don't know whether I like that or not, because yeah, I know Lesnar's a babyface now, but that doesn't mean that you should just forget about everything.
Well, I think had Hogan stayed, we would have gotten more of that.
I think they should have just done something where, like, Lesnar's standing there, like, face to face with Hogan. Hogan decides he's going to walk away. Lesnar just slightly steps in front of him, just to give you that little tease, and then he just lets him by. I think that would have been better than Lesnar just saying, "Hey, welcome back," smiling at him, and then just getting out of his way.
I think it should have been they bump into each other, like nothing is said, and Lesnar kind of moves past Hogan because you can't have Hogan run away. But also Brock can dismiss Hogan because he can say, "I'm already done with you," you know?
Yeah, something like that. But obviously, they couldn't be too heelish because the fans would maybe turn on Lesnar then.
Yeah. Hogan was still very much beloved.
Billy Kidman versus Matt Hardy. So we learned that Matt Hardy has a TV/DVD player in his car, which I assume at the time was a big deal.
That's amazing in 2002 or 2003.
And then he usually exceeds the speed limit. Man, do not admit that on live TV. Or like, it was not live, but like recorded TV. It's just like, okay, I guess the police cars will be following him a lot closely, and not even just because of the weed that's probably in there.
I think what a different time where you could just say shit like that. It was no big deal. Ah, he's a wrestler. Yeah, I speed. I go past speed limit.
They show a replay of Hardy attacking Kidman the previous week. Hardy uses Shannon Moore as a human shield early. Kidman backdrops him out of the way, but then he eats a side effect. So that's an early start with the side effect. Hardy dominates for a while. The crowd chants for Jeff Hardy, which shows that his heel turn is really working out well.
They just love Jeff.
Head scissors by Kidman gets a bit of a reprieve, but Hardy applies a sleeper hold. Kidman escapes that, hits a drop kick, BK bomb for 2. Hardy uniquely catches Kidman out of the corner, drops him on the ropes. He goes for a twist of fate, but Kidman escapes, hits his step up bulldog, gets 2 count for that. Hardy climbs up with Kidman to prevent the shooting star press, but Kidman fights him off, goes for a double sledge, like Kidman going for a double sledge. But
Yeah.
Hardy kicks him in the gut. That's obviously that's when you know that this spot is not going to hit. When a wrestler like Kidman goes for a double sledge, it's like, oh, he's going to get kicked in the gut. That's what happens, and exactly what happens. Hardy kicks him in the gut, calls for a twist of fate, but Kidman jackknife pins him, and gets the 3 count.
I like it. Decent match. They're obviously going to Hardy in the cruiserweight division. We know that because benefit of hindsight. And I think for a while, Hardy's cruiserweight run is the best thing he did.
Oh yeah, it's an awesome run, we'll get to we'll get to see the very, very origins of that when we talk about No Way Out and the week after that, but we won't get to see it in full, unfortunately. Again, we'll get to see it at WrestleMania as well. But Hardy, in shock after his defeat, talks to the commentators, says Kevin got lucky, and that through attitude, he'll go from his current weight, which he says is 230 pounds, which I think is a lie, to 220 pounds to challenge for the Cruiserweight Championship, because
I think he's already 220, if that.
I doubt he's much over 200.
Yeah.
So, but that's obviously
that's how fast the attitude works.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like
through attitude, he feels like he's 230 pounds, so he needs to get down to 220.
I love that.
The weekly huddle by Team Angle talk about their retrospective matches for tonight. Angle says that he wants to soar like an eagle tonight, but not a fake eagle like the Philadelphia Eagles, because you have to take pot shots at the hometown.
Of course you do. How else are you gonna get your cheap heat, Callum?
Yeah. He tells them to bring home the gold. They put their hands in. They all psyched up to go for the match. And that's what we have now for the WWE Tag Team Championships. Los Guerreros defending against Team Angle.
Wrestling, Cal.
It's a good match. I think at times it was a bit over the top, a little bit overly chaotic about who's in what place and who's legal and who's not legal. But overall, all 4 guys are really good workers, so they're going to have a good match.
Yes.
There's still something like a mixed reception for Los Guerreros as they come out. They're not being like belovedly cheered, but they're not being booed out of the building as well. Interesting, Paul Heyman is managing Team Angle tonight.
Yeah, I think that's good. He still was their manager.
Yeah, absolutely. But it seemed a bit strange just seeing him there. But yeah, that makes sense. There's a creative sign I saw in the crowd of somebody that had drawn up all members of Team Angle as like little babies.
I miss creative crowd signs, and this goes well beyond the pandemic. Like, they had stopped being fun a long time ago.
I know, the most creative thing we've got in the pandemic era is the guy that decided to put a Pikachu still on his camera. They should let more people do that. I just want to see like the Pikachu meme and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Benoit's too far, but the other stuff's fine.
Yeah, no, that stuff is good. You should have a little fun with it.
We get some chain wrestling early on with Benjamin and Chavo. Eddie and Haas finished that as well. They could do a bit more. Guerrero start taking over. They start doing their mixed heel tactics still, because they're choking with the ropes and they're doing fake tags and all the other stuff. So they're still working like heels, but they're getting more of a babyface reaction for doing it. At one point, they both trip Benjamin. They pull him crotch first into the ring post.
Vintage babyface move, attacking the other guy's crotch.
Yeah. After a long struggle, Benjamin hits a backdrop, tags in Haas. Action breaks down as Haas and Eddie are whipped into each other. And then Benjamin lifts Chavo to the apron. Eddie drop kicks Benjamin into the ref, into Chavo, who goes flying into the announce table. So that's kind of Chavo knocked out of the equation. And after the break, we see Team Angle has the heat on Chavo. And they say, the commentary says that the referees almost threw out the match because Chavo bounced off the announce table.
Do they expect anybody to believe that?
I mean, you can have injuries can happen in strange times and stuff like that. I mean, what was it? Neville got injured against Jericho by just landing or something, wasn't it? He just was walking or whatever, and his leg gave out.
I'll grant you that.
Yeah. But they decided to keep going. So they do the leapfrog splash by Benjamin Haas. They go for another, but Eddie trips Benjamin, and then there's another 4-way brawl that breaks out. Chavo reverses a double back body drop into a double DDT. Eddie makes the hot tag. He runs wild. Hits what I believe is the first in this journey of the 3 Amigos.
Yeah.
Which is Oh my god, he broke that out for the first time on TV. Obviously it was a tag team title match, but I just felt like it would have been more significant than that.
You know what though? It's really not, because it only becomes significant now because he's gone. And at that point it was like, oh cool, Eddie hit 3 suplexes. They're not calling it the Three Amigos. I think that part of it helps it. But yeah, first Three Amigos, vintage Eddie Guerrero, added on February 6th, 2003.
I love this spot as well. Eddie hits a superplex on Charlie Haas, and immediately Chavo's leaping off the other corner into a frog splash. Pin is broken up by Benjamin. I know it feels weird having Chavo do the frog splash, but he was really good at the frog splash as well. He wasn't Eddie, but he was good at it.
The thing is, Chavo does a brainbuster and Eddie does a frog splash. Like, just do that.
Chavo then hits a tornado DDT, and Eddie climbs up, so he's going to go for a frog splash combo as well. Benjamin pushes Eddie off into the announce table. Chavo then dives onto Benjamin. Haas hits a belly to belly, gets 2. Goes for the leapfrog setup, but they nearly drop Eddie out of the ring in the process. Like Eddie's just like almost leaning all the way out over the side of it. I don't think he even knew what that move was for a second. But they do manage to hit it after a bit of a camera cut. Team Angle set up for a double superplex on Eddie, but Chavo hits an electric chair on Haas. Eddie hits a sunset flip powerbomb onto Benjamin.
Love that.
Yeah, that was great. Heyman then stops Eddie climbing up, but Chavo hits him with a plancher. So even Heyman's taking bumps in this match.
Of course he is. You have to know, like, this for him. This is like ECW. Like, he loves this stuff.
Yeah, but this is when it gets slightly too over convoluted to me, because Eddie then hits the frog splash on Benjamin, but the referee then says that Benjamin's not legal. But even though Eddie hit that sunset flip powerbomb a couple of seconds ago, made a pin attempt, and the referee started counting, but then Eddie actually got off the pin himself because he realised that Benjamin's not legal and that's not the way it's supposed to go. And then probably the referee was told in his ear that Benjamin's not legal, that's what the finish is. So it got a little bit confusing to me. But then Eddie, obviously, he's in the pin on he has the pin on Benjamin. Benjamin's not legal, so Huss leaps in, hits a La Magistral Cradle, and pins Eddie Guerrero, and we have new tag team champions.
Straight to the moon. They've been there for what, like a month?
Yeah, they started
3 weeks,
in late December, I think they started.
Like, straight to the moon, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's how you get a new team over, by giving them titles immediately. But yeah, obviously they knew they had something very good with Benjamin and Haas, and yeah, become tag team champions. Los Guerreros don't really lose too much by dropping it here. They've held it very well here, and they'll get more opportunities down the line.
They will. No, they won't.
They become tag champions again.
No, Eddie becomes tag team champion. It's Jerry.
Yeah, but then they drop it again to Team Angle, and then he wins it back with Chavo.
Oh, I seem to have lost that.
Yeah, that was when he was a double champion, when he was US and tag champion.
Oh, very cool.
That was a time when double champions actually were less frequent than they are nowadays.
Yeah, and they actually defended both titles.
But yeah, very good match overall. Nice title change, big moment on an episode of SmackDown. Always good to see.
God.
I'll say another big moment is Hulk Hogan's entrance.
People love Hulk Hogan. Callum.
Yeah, he's playing to the crowd. This entrance isn't quite as long as the big 8-minute standing ovation he got a few weeks ago, but it's still fairly long. But obviously, it's terrible because of the awful network music that they play instead of Voodoo Child.
And that is why, as dumb as it is, I when Tony Khan buys songs in perpetuity, I'm like, okay, but that's how you do it.
Yeah.
So that we never have to worry about this dumb shit.
I mean, I know they're strapped for cash, WWE, so maybe they can't afford to do that sort of thing. But it's like,
yeah,
God, just pay for Voodoo Child. I don't care how much it costs. That was the song, or just put Real American on instead. Why?
Yeah, at that point, who cares? You're putting a fake Voodoo Child that nobody associates with anybody.
But before he gets to say anything, he's cut off by The Rock, who's appearing again via satellite. Rock says Hogan is great and he's looking forward to the rematch. He wants to sit back and hear what Hogan has to say. Rock then points at him to start, like a director would. Hogan talks about his challenge to McMahon, wasn't expecting The Rock and his shaved head to be here. And I just thought, well, it's really rich of Hulk Hogan to have a go at somebody for having shaved head.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to be sitting there balding, Hulk.
Yeah. Rock starts yawning on camera. He asks Hogan to fast forward to the part that everyone wants to hear, where he just like hulks up and says, "What you gonna do, brother?" and all that other stuff.
I appreciate that.
Hogan then runs down the Rock for a little bit, but Rock cuts him off and says that his tofu's ready. So he tells Hogan not to bore the people, cut to the chase, do his poses, and leave. And
I
then,
really appreciate that. Like,
yeah, Rock asks Hogan to remind him to whip that ass at No Way Out. Tells the lady to get the tofu and pie ready for him, and then he does the "if you smell" line and leaves. Unfortunately, Hogan does not take his advice. He decides to continue on for a little bit longer. He talks about how Rock shouldn't be calling him boring when he was booed out of the building at Raw's 10th anniversary. He then calls out McMahon's accusations from the previous week, including that he created Hulkamania and that it's currently on life support and that he can't be trusted, and he doesn't. Basically, he just repeats everything that McMahon said.
Somebody said Hulk Hogan can't be trusted. Who did that? Like,
Hogan says McMahon is full of shit. He actually says shit, but they'll say bleep it out because he's edgy Hogan.
Yeah.
And he's scared to death of getting in the ring with him. Hogan says that him and The Rock will be the rematch of all rematches. He calls Rock Rocker Jabroni, which I assume was meant to be clever.
Rocker Jabroni, that's so stupid.
Yeah. Says it will be electrifying. Says the millions of Hulkamaniacs will be booing him out of the building at No Way Out. And then he does the "what you gonna do" line, and then it's that's the segment. It was good. It was good until Hogan was left on his own.
I appreciate that Rock like no, just shut up, do your thing, and just go home.
It is sort of segments like this, and a lot of other segments just make me feel like Rock is just once in a lifetime athlete. Yeah. It's just like there is not ever going to be. I mean, Roman's doing great right now, and don't want to take anything away from him, or don't want to take anything away from Cena or other people. Even don't want to take away from people like Hogan and Austin, but like there is no one who's ever been in WWE like The Rock.
The Rock has a pulse on society like nobody has ever, and nobody will ever. He just knows what people want and gives it to them. When people want to hear him say Fruity Pebbles, he just says Fruity Pebbles. When people want him to be a heel, he will give them that, Rock is great.
So we have a group of geeks watching Hogan on the monitor backstage, one of them being Brian Kendrick, who is then approached by Sean O'Haire. Now, I know you wanted to see this thing, so I'll definitely give you the floor once the opportunity does, but we can barely hear their conversation because the stupid imposed Hogan music is like the network's putting on just overbearing. Like, it's going so loudly that you can't hear anything that O'Haire and Kendrick are saying to each other. Eventually, it dies down a little bit, and we see O'Haire says that he's impressed by Kendrick's guts last week and says that he should make another impact here tonight. He talks about the Nike Shock commercial because Kendrick is wearing a Nike Shock boot, the shoes, or like I guess you call them sneakers, I imagine.
Yeah.
Basically, he hands Kendrick a scarf, inferring that Kendrick should streak around the building. O'Haire ends it saying, but he's not telling Kendrick anything that he doesn't already know. And then he leaves. Kendrick, spurred on by the manipulation of O'Haire, puts on the scarf and strips down as the show faces a commercial with all the wrestlers just looking at this guy getting naked in front of them.
First of all, I think Brian Kendrick, because I know a little bit of his real life beliefs, would be great for this devil's advocate stuff. This commercial was okay when you're a kid. Well, even sometimes now too. When you're a kid and there's just a guy streaking across a soccer field as a commercial for shoes, it was the funniest thing. And when you add WWE Anyway, I'll let you get to the segment, and then I'll keep going.
Yeah, so can I ask, first of all, because WWE doesn't have a great track record of being on the pulse of things, how recent was this Night
This
Shot
was
commercial?
no, they were right there.
Oh, that's
They're
good.
right there. Yeah.
Okay, so what we're supposed to have is A-Train versus Shannon Moore. So A-Train makes his entrance, but before he can even get to the ring, we see a naked man in a scarf, or supposedly naked man. I assume he was wearing some sort of like flesh-colored trunks or whatever, because they weren't actually going to let a naked man run out
That's
in
true
front of
thing.
lights.
There's some stories about like Vince McMahon demanding Lita be naked during the live sex celebration.
Yeah, there are parts like that, but Kendrick like charged past him, supposing like he dances about in the ring. Uh, this is honestly, this is juvenile as it gets. It's fucking hilarious. This entire segment. It's just so because it's made. You know what makes this better? Because Kendrick is great in this segment. What makes it even better is the fucking referees, because they are trying to tackle this guy. They're jumping all over for him to try and grab hold of him. Like he runs around commentary, Colin Taz making jokes about how he has a small dick. Like Michael Cole is making jokes about how Brian Kendrick has a small penis.
It's just good. Like it's so silly, but it works and it's perfect for the time.
Yeah, it like escapes through the crowd. We actually have the match that goes on. It goes less than a minute. It's a bicycle kick, a guillotine, catapult, and then the train wreck, and a train defeats Shannon Moore.
That's not the story here.
No, that's not the story, because Kendrick returns immediately, being chased by the ref through the crowd. He avoids another by hopping the barricade. He gyrates on the post. A-Train tries to clothesline him, but he ducks that. He's eventually like cornered at ringside, but he isn't, because he escapes under the ring. He just waltzes through there. He stops again on the other side, but he dives through the legs of the security guard. He runs up the ramp all the way backstage. So he's escaped capture for the time being.
Yeah.
We come back and meet. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna put over the segment again. It's just so good.
It's not over yet though, because after the break we cut backstage where Stephanie McMahon is on the phone talking to someone about if Bischoff managed to sign Steve Austin yet. Kendrick's still on the run. He dives into a room, conveniently the SmackDown general manager office. He walks up and Stephanie's still on the phone, like stops talking because like she sees a naked man in front of her. Stephanie's like bemused, like he stands there. He tries to play it cool. He says that like he's really excited to meet her. He holds his hand out to like have a handshake. At this point, a load of security guards and referees bust into the room, grab him around. He's like saying, "It's very nice to meet you." It's like he's just dragged away, and Stephanie says, "Yeah, I could see that," because he obviously got an immediate erection looking at Stephanie McMahon. Like literally, he wasn't in front of her for more than 10 seconds, and in that point in time, he managed to get a full-on boner.
Yeah.
Apparently, that is the power of Stephanie McMahon, the hottest woman and most powerful woman in the entire history of WWE.
You know what? I'll allow it in 2003 because Stephanie was probably peak Stephanie there. But man, this was fantastic. This, if they could continue to do culturally relevant humor like this, it would just be. That's what wrestling should be in these sports entertainment segments.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I say, it is juvenile. It's not exactly the most highbrow material. It's a guy running around a building naked.
Well, you know what? Wrestling isn't meant to be highbrow, and
No, but
it's so much better.
Kendrick does it so good. Like he does such a good job here. Like he's a highly underrated superstar in history, really.
Yeah, and again, I think he could totally bring back the Devil's Advocate gimmick and crush it.
So before we get to the main event, John Cena comes into the ring wearing a ridiculous Harlem Globetrotters style jumpsuit.
Well, what's ridiculous about this? This is fantastic.
Well, I'll tell you what's ridiculous about it. Where's Red Dog?
Oh, he has other pressing business to attend to.
I'll tell you where Red Dog is. He's gone. He won't be back. That's
For
it.
now. He's somewhere else.
He'll be on Raw eventually as
It's
Rodney Mack.
Yeah, it's he's about to tell the suckers what they need to do.
Yeah, but yeah, because they decided, I'm not too comfortable with the idea of pushing D'Lo Brown. Can we find someone else to do that instead? And like, oh, let's do Rodney Mack instead.
Right.
So that's the story there. Cena calls out Brock Lesnar, essentially demands a match with him, and does a freestyle rap both on Lesnar and bad mouthing the Philadelphia crowd. So obviously, I'd try and pick out some choice lines. He calls Brock Lesnar dumb, and he says the F5 stands for Fee Fi Fo Farm Forgot My Name.
John is trying.
Okay, so here's the one that's probably would be very much against the Cena ethos nowadays. You're so clumsy, you couldn't beat a cripple in a dance-off.
The man is releasing children's motivational books. I
Well,
love it.
I'm not finished yet. So after that, so you're so clumsy, you couldn't beat a cripple in a dance-off. Want to see the next big thing? Then let me take my pants off.
Oh my god, it's so good.
That is so fucking good I mean, I know it's so offensive, but it's so good as a line.
He has some really, really good innuendo throughout all of these segments that we're not gonna see a lot of them, but like come on. If you're gonna make a dick reference, there it is. Like that's really good.
Yeah, it is an awesome line. What's not so awesome is when he makes the challenge to Lesnar and then he does a rewind motion.
Yeah, that didn't work on the main roster,
yeah.
John.
And then he says he'll kick Brock Lesnar's ass next week. So next week in the main event, we get Brock Lesnar versus John Cena.
That's not gonna end well for John.
So that's their second match because they had one where Cena was like the white meat babyface against the heel Lesnar a couple of weeks ago. But obviously, it seems like it's a big deal when it's John Cena against Brock Lesnar. Because of hindsight, obviously.
Yeah, because they are two of the biggest stars in wrestling. John Cena is legitimately our Hulk Hogan, and it starts here. Well, it starts not here, but it starts next week, and sky's the limit.
So speaking of things that we get pretty much every single week, which is Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit in the main event.
See, this goes right back to my how is one a positive and the other a negative? They're always together.
Yeah. I want to talk about this. Counting only the matches in which they've been opponents since the start of this series, since the start of the series began, this is their 10th match together on
That's
TV
amazing.
and pay-per-view. And there are a further 9 matches in which they were tag team partners.
You know what? That's just about what made this series so appealing in the first place, though.
Absolutely. But just it does feel a little bit like Apollo Crews only faces people in the Hurt Business for 3 months or whatever that was.
Do you think if we were younger, would we care about that kind of stuff?
If we were younger, we wouldn't care. I think if we were this age now, back then, we probably would be a bit critical.
We probably would have cared.
Yeah. So that's the difference. As you get older, things get worse. That's basically
which is a terrible disposition, but you're right.
Yeah. Not to obviously upset anybody that's listening that's of a younger age than both of us in our late 20s. Life does just start.
We're sorry.
Yeah. Don't blame us, blame life. That's how life works. Now we need to talk about something that's a little bit, something that we only have to talk about in Benoit segments, which is that there was an interview segment prior to this match that was cut out of the WWE Network.
Gee, I wonder why. What did he say, Callum?
So Benoit referenced the ovation that he received at the Royal Rumble, where he returned home to his wife and son, telling him how proud they were of him for his performance. Obviously, that already cuts to the bone. Mm-hmm. Kurt then says that how it arrives and says to Benoit that his wife is the WWE Championship and his gold medals are his children. That sort of little joke reference there. And then the thing that probably did cause this to be cut out completely, Benoit responded by saying that he looks forward to the day he can take Angle's family away from him.
Oh God, what? Oh,
Yep.
oh no. There's a lot there. I was gonna make a joke about, well, Kurt, if the title's your wife and the gold medals are your kids, that's probably why Karen later found herself with Jeff. But wow, that just makes me not want to tell any jokes anymore.
No, it's a little hard to go back to again. It's the dichotomy of having to talk about Chris Benoit, like having a huge amount of admiration for the in-ring worker that he was, and just trying to balance that out with the fact that
He's a
by the end
fucking
of his life,
monster. Like,
by the end of his life, he was a fucking monster that again did what he did. So we don't have to go into detail about that, but suffice to say, that sort of phrasing would be difficult for someone to go back and listen to. But
yeah,
we're trying to be completionists here.
yeah, wow. Um, it's so weird, and I often wonder about the current state of mental and emotional awareness and how different that could have factored in, but it just wasn't. It just didn't exist, you know? And I think about that a lot, especially with Benoit, because there's so much we can't even touch with him.
So essentially, this match is pretty much, I don't want to say it's pretty much the same as what you'd expect from it, but obviously it's a really good match. But I do want to give them a lot of credit because they've had to wrestle a lot, and yet they're still finding different spots to do. And obviously, we'll talk about that throughout this, but like I appreciate the fact that they're always trying to mix up the formula a little bit to try and do something a little bit different in every match.
I think it's easy when you know, like, when the both of you have a similar approach, it's easy to be like, okay, we can toss it up like this because they're probably both willing to talk to each other and, hey, what if we did this and just change it up like this? Because, we know Benoit was meticulous about making sure things were different and, not wanting to give fans the same spots over and over.
After a little while, Heyman arrives at ringside when Angle takes control. And at one point, he even charges Chris Benoit on the floor. So Heyman is getting very physical tonight.
Yeah, it's Philly. He's home.
Angle at some point, is bleeding from the mouth at one point for some reason. Just like, again, these two just work very stiff, so it's just going to happen occasionally. We'll obviously talk a little bit more about that later on, but Benoit escapes a grapevine choke. He runs to a kitchen sink knee. He fights back eventually with chops and a back body drop, but Angle reverses a German suplex attempt into the ankle lock. Benoit reverses that into a pin. He locks in the crossface. Angle rolls through. He attempts an angle slam, but Benoit reverses that into a pin attempt. German by Benoit. Angle blocks another. He attempts an angle slam. Benoit escapes midair, a little clunkily, but he ends up in the crossface again because they just counter after counter after counter after counter because these guys can just get into any position they want to at any point.
I think, and we'll talk about this maybe even years down the line in retrospect. I think that this style of wrestling is about to make a major comeback.
I would hope so. I'm hoping that I'm seeing bits of it with like the Pure Championship and Ring of Honor. I do love just watching just matches from that every now and again. It's just really good.
I've been noticing a lot of wrestlers have been talking about cutting out the flips and going more towards a a technical style, and I think I'm totally here for it.
Yeah, that'd be good to see. Um, Basically with so many reversals and counters in this match, it's basically every online game that you would play on like SmackDown versus not SmackDown versus Raw, but any of the WWE and WWE 2K games where it's just like, oh, we just put infinite reversals on and we're just pressing R2 repeatedly after one after another or
Yeah.
whatever. So Angle grabs the ankle while in the crossface, forcing him to break it, but Benoit reverses again into the crossface. Angle this time reaches the ropes. Benoit goes for the headbutt, but Angle scales up for a suplex, but Benoit tosses him away. Angle fights back, hits a buckle bomb.
Uh, that's the man. It's
Yeah.
innovation.
But then Benoit hits a flipping release German suplex because Angle loves that spot. Loves taking that spot, clearly.
Do you blame him?
No, so if you can do it, then go ahead. Benoit is bleeding heavily over the eye after colliding heads with Angle earlier. but he still hits another German suplex, flies with the headbutt, but Angle dodges at the very last second. Angle avoids the German suplex, hits another angle slam, or hits his first angle slam, pins Benoit off the angle slam, which I didn't actually expect because it was one angle slam.
You know what, though? I think it's a TV match, and you're putting your finisher over. I like it.
No, I'm totally happy with him doing it. It's just like I wasn't expecting it. That's almost made it better. But yeah, another great match, another very physical, good match between these two. Both of them bleeding at the end of it. Post match, Angle offers a handshake to Benoit. Yeah, I believe this is the final singles match we'll see between the two of them.
You know what, man? I gotta say, it's the reason I was so excited to do this series. So kudos to those two men for always knocking it out of the park. Whether it was tags, 3-ways, 4-ways, singles, and we literally saw all of it. Congratulations to them.
Kyle, do they ever have another singles match again?
Oh,
because I can't think of it. Like there may have been one in like, because I know they were both on Raw in 2000. Well, actually, Benoit switched over to SmackDown when Angle went over to Raw in the in one of the drafts.
Unless it's no, I don't think they do.
So is this realistically the last ever match between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit in singles competition?
At the very least, it's the last televised match.
Yeah, that's a hell of a thing, right there.
That's wow.
That makes it feel a little bit more significant now, doesn't it?
I mean, when you think about Kurt Angle, and Kurt Angle is one of the very few people who has no qualms about bringing up Chris Benoit and the impact that Chris Benoit and the matches with Benoit had on his career. It's his the best shit you could ever watch. I mean, like you watch the wrestling you watch today, I think because these guys exist.
Yeah, I'm just checking Cage Match now. Yeah, this is their final ever singles match on television.
Wow.
Yep.
Man, that's historic. I mean, it truly is. Like, you know, we obviously know the last Austin Rock match is at WrestleMania. The last, I think the last Shawn Michaels Triple H match might have been on a random Raw in 2008 or 9. But like this match, this is one of those feuds that I can't believe they never did it again. Because they're both active for another 4 years. So yeah. I can't. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, funny enough, it's they only share the ring 3 more times.
One of them sent No Way Out.
One of them would talk about No Way Out with the main event in there, and the other 2 are 2 Royal Rumbles.
They never have another match. Not even like at a house show in Biloxi or something.
No, because Cage. To be fair, Cage Match I think only lists the TV shows and pay-per-views, so they may have had house show matches, but as far as on TV, yeah, that's a lot for them.
That's insane. I you know what? That just took on a whole new meaning of this match, and this is a great match, and it just takes on a whole new meaning.
It also adds more meaning to like the match of the Royal Rumble because that was like their penultimate ever match.
Yeah, and it's the match that I think, I don't know if I talked about this, but Triple H had said to Kurt Angle, because Kurt Angle said this on the Austin show, that like that's the match that he said, I've never seen a better wrestling match. I can't follow that. And I have to assume that that's what he said. Give me Benoit. I can work with him.
So, yep. So now we've looked into just how big of a deal this match is. Post-match, Angle offers the handshake to Benoit. He begrudgingly accepts. Angle raises his hand, which I actually feel like, I know obviously what happens afterwards happens, but that feels like the right thing to do now.
Yeah.
When you think better in context, like just that one little moment. But Team Angle charge the ring. They start a 3-on-1 beatdown of Benoit because they're dirty, rotten scoundrels.
I love it.
Edge gets in, he spears Angle, but Team Angle then gang up on him. But Brock Lesnar is soon behind him, drops both Team Angle members with F5s to leave the babyfaces standing strong at the end. So, overall, good show.
I really think it would have been a fun 6-man, and it was great with the handicap match that we get, but it would have been a really good 6-man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is again a fun show. I think a lot of matches were short, but mostly were done really well. Everything seemed to have a purpose behind it. So it's either like the Matt Hardy Billy Kidman thing, we're building towards a cruiserweight title match there. The Rikishi and Nunzio were leading towards the development of the FBI. The only match that didn't really serve any sort of purpose was Mysterio and Noble, but that's just because Mysterio and Noble was like a good match. Even like obviously A-Train and Moore as a match didn't mean anything, but we got the Brian Kendrick stuff instead, and that was fun. So yeah, I think that it was just really entertaining for the most part of this episode.
Yeah, this is one of those that really makes you sad that we're almost done.
Mm.
Like, this was a really fun look, and I'm glad that I have gone on this journey.
Well, we still have 3 more episodes to go. So, what are we going to be talking about next week? Well, next week, we obviously mentioned the main event side of things is going to be not Chris Benoit. It's going to be John Cena against Brock Lesnar. So,
and an important match.
It is a Valentine's themed edition of SmackDown because it takes place on the 13th of February. So
Yeah.
they do some stuff revolving around that, including, for the first time we've seen them since like the Royal Rumble, Tori Wilson versus Dawn Marie in a Valentine's Day bra and panties match. Yep.
I almost never mind. Just go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm gonna say Al Wilson didn't die for this, and then I felt bad, but like, how dare they? Like, this was such a big thing for them. Like, they couldn't pretend.
It's just the way things go, I guess, sometimes. We also have let me just double check this stuff. We have Chris Benoit against the A-Train. Shelton Benjamin against Eddie Guerrero.
I couldn't even
Rey Mysterio against
pretend to care about Chris Benoit on the A-Train, I gotta tell you.
See the debut of the full-blooded Italians, Rey Mysterio against Matt Hardy. And, again, another significant moment, the last Edge match of 2000 up until 2005.
Don't you mean 2004?
2004, yeah. I forgot that. I forgot that he came
back. No,
he
skipped 2 Manias. He didn't skip 2 years. Though.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, the final Edge match until Backlash 2004, I believe, was his first match back.
Which is sad, quite frankly, because he's on a high. There's also another What's in the Box, and this one's a little cringy.
Oh yeah, we will. Oh yeah, we will talk about that. Yeah.
There will be stuff to talk about.
yeah. There'll be plenty of stuff as per usual to talk about on this journey, as we only have a few more episodes to go. So we've got February 13th, February 20th, and February 27th is the final stop on our journey, or at least for the main show. We obviously have another side of things, which is on the Patreon. So if you are not on the Patreon, like patreon.com/Smark Out Moment, if you sign up, you can sign up on any single tier that you want to, for anything from $1 upwards, and any amount is obviously greatly appreciated. But if you are willing to stump up $10, that gives you access to the Dark Casts, where we have these special editions, the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, where we do pay-per-view reviews. So we have every single pay-per-view we've reviewed up here, starting at Vengeance 2002 all the way to now. And our most one that's upcoming will be No Way Out 2003. So hopefully you'll join us for that one. And then after that, there will be a big review of WrestleMania 19 as well, where we'll also try and get Tony involved, because Tony, strangely enough, has never seen that show.
Yeah. We're thinking, and we haven't decided yet, that we may do a full-blown watch-along of WrestleMania 19. And I would love to get Tony's reactions as the matches happen, as everything happens.
I think especially the McMahon-Hogan match.
Yeah. Because cards on the table, that's my favorite Vince McMahon match ever, and it's one of my favorite Hulk Hogan matches. That one is a trip.
It is just an amazing spectacle. I can't say it's a great match, it's an amazing spectacle. But yeah, we will look forward to that as well. So hopefully you'll join us on that side of things. There are other ways you can obviously support us monetarily as well outside of the Patreon. If you want to pick up some Smark Out Moment merchandise, there are the Redbubble and TeePublic shops, so you can pick up a few bits and pieces there. Other ways you can support us are that if money's like a bit of an issue right now, obviously we know times are tight. So Other ways you can support us are just by sharing the articles on smarkoutmoment.com, leaving comments, just reading them in the first place, just clicking on the articles, just checking them out. It's obviously great. Following us on social media, Twitter and Facebook at Smark Out Moment. Joining the Mega Maniacs Facebook group, facebook.com/the Mega Maniacs. Helping out Tony on the Fanboys Anonymous side of things. So Fanboys Anonymous is where you can check out all that you need for the geek culture side of things, movies, television shows, comic books, video games, all right there at Fanboys Anonymous. We're also doing our own podcast series as well, me, Tony, and Rob, on the James Bond series, A Review to a Kill. And there's plenty of other stuff that's going on there as well. So check out the YouTube channel, check out the website, check out their Facebook, their Twitter, their Patreon, their Redbubble, their TeePublic, all of that great stuff surrounding Fanboys Anonymous. Rob.
Yes.
Tell us what you're doing.
You can follow me on Twitter at DeFelice. That's first and foremost. I'm over at Fightful.com. A couple days ago, we just had the Q4 2020 investor call. Maybe there was some big news. Maybe there wasn't. We're recording this prior to, so I guess we'll see there. But yes, you can find me every day of the week practically on Fightful.com. You can also go over to WrestleZone.com. You can continue checking Fanboys because I've been doing a lot over there as well. Doing stuff with Tony. We did a watch along of Mulan, the 99 one. We did a watch along of Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, in which I get mind fucked about the similarities between our former president and fictional President Lex Luthor. And yeah, just keep clicking around, and I appreciate all the support, and I thank you for coming on this journey.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. And yeah, we'll see you again next week for the go home show for No Way Out. But until then, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.